I was a bit daunted about the process, but I wanted to engage with it and start to sort it out, because I knew there was various deadlines, and if I missed those deadlines it would be professionally very embarrassing, and I wouldn't be able to continue in my role until I'd sorted it out.
I think as the date approached, I was slightly nervous about it, because I'm in an education role. So there was a little bit about whether an educator can revalidate easy using this system. But reading the guidelines, reading the different articles on it, and looking at some of the stuff from the NMC, actually it became very clear that it wasn't too hard at all. So that put my mind at rest.
I actually felt quite confident because I'd been to some of the revalidation sessions, and I think I was quite well prepared. So I'd got everything ready and sort of downloaded all the information I needed.
There was a lot there. I mean, Frimley Park has a revalidation lead, and she was very helpful. I went to a couple of her meetings and I took along what I thought was the way I should be doing it, and showed her my sort of start of my paperwork on it, and saying, am I going in the right direction? And it was very reassuring to know that, oh yes, I was on the right track, and I had understood it.
So the Trust has a revalidation lead, and what was important was for me to engage with that individual to make sure that any new information that was coming out of the NMC that I may have missed as a personal thing was actually highlighted and updated. And so myself and that individual worked together to ensure that we were looking at the correct documents, we had enough information for my revalidation.
So as I say, I went to some workshops and was able to talk to the lead for revalidation in my trust, and obviously was supported by my manager as well in terms of achieving what I needed to achieve and getting the confirmer sign off.
It enshrines the new NMC Code of Conduct, and to me, the way I read it, it is about taking that new code and seeing how you best put it into practice.
Revalidation is absolutely vital for nurses. You wouldn't find other professions carrying on with their job without actually looking at whether they were capable of doing so. So I think it's important for us as a profession to ensure that we keep updated, but actually that is validated so that we and our colleagues and our seniors are happy that we are gaining the new skills and new knowledge as we move forward. Because at the end of the day, this is for patient care. So if we stay stagnant and patient care moves forward and procedures move forward, then we're left behind. So it's really important that we actually are able to demonstrate that we can revalidate our position as nurses.
I think it's really important, just if not only for ourselves, obviously the patients are very important, making sure we are up to date, but actually it's a good thing. I found it quite cathartic looking back over the 3 years and thinking, God, I've done quite a lot, and actually realising, yeah, I've learned a lot over that time, and those reflections and looking at feedback as well that you've received is really nice, and actually makes you realise, actually, this is why I love being a nurse.
Well, first of all, I went online. There's a lot of good downloadable documents, PDF files. I read through, highlighting what I needed to do based on that. There was also a very good series of 8 articles in the nursing standard, and I collected those together, and again that gave me a step-by-step what to do, when to do it type of lead.
So with me, I'm a bit of a tech geek, so I just opened a folder in the cloud. I made sure that I looked over my past few years of certificates and courses and conferences that I'd attended, and looked at the different reflection that I'd already written post those events. So I was quite fortunate in that I had a fair amount of work already completed, and what I needed to do was to actually put that into the new format. So I created Word documents that reflected and were master copies of the NMC's official documentation. So I was able to keep that in electronic format.
Yeah, so as I say, I had the workshop and downloaded the information. So for me, it was just about setting aside the time. So I went and looked through all of my information and documented that. In terms of then having the confirmation and the professional discussion with my manager, that became part of my appraisal, so that was really useful. But yeah, as a process, it was just something I sort of set time aside for and put the information down.
The only barrier is that I'm a bit of a dinosaur when it comes to computers, and I was a bit intimidated thinking I had to do it all online. I've also unfortunately got arthritis in my hands now, so typing is painful, so I didn't want to be doing an awful lot on a keyboard, but I found that it was perfectly okay for me to handwrite, in my own time.
The only barriers that I actually would say I faced was ones that I created myself, and in the fear of whether I could revalidate as a full-time educationalist and a nurse. But actually the guidance is relatively clear on this, and there isn't a problem if you're in an educational role about revalidating. So there wasn't a huge amount of barriers that I faced from that point of view.
No, I was quite fortunate really. I think again, because I was prepared for it and had the support of my team and my manager, I was really quite well supported and didn't have any barriers come up.
The most important thing is to realise that the date that your registration lapses is not the date you need to put in your application. You need to engage with the fact that you need to have that in a good month ahead, in fact sooner rather than later, sort of thing.
I think the key really for revalidation is to ensure that you keep up to date. It isn't such an onerous task if you maintain a level of input into revalidation throughout the 3 years. So for example, I revalidated this year in October. I've already attended a conference since then, and I've already written reflection on that conference, which has already given me some participatory hours towards my revalidation for 2019.
For me, I would say it's all about preparing and doing things along the way. So if you've had a good shift or a shift that you want to reflect on something that's happened, try and do it there and then or as soon after as you can.